Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I am your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. We are halfway through August now and just wrapped up the Hlinka Gretzky last Sunday was, right? So, we're recording about a week after it. But, we're going to talk about some standouts from the tournament. Basically the first look at a lot of these 2027 draft eligible players. And what's crazy is that there's some 2028 eligible ones that really stood out. And we'll talk about them as we go. But Peter, how's it going?
It's going great. Yeah, basically that's the kickoff of the 2027 draft season. So we got our first look at some of the top names. A lot of them put their best foot forward and making themselves known as a top prospect in this year. Let's hope that could continue. And obviously, you don't want to put too much stock into one tournament, but it was a hell of a showing for some of those guys on Team Canada right now. So let's hope that that's going to continue for a lot of them, but other players are going to step it up throughout the year. But yeah, definitely a good showing and can't wait.
For sure. Yes. Lots of stuff to come. This is the beginning, like you said. Dayton, how's it going?
Also pretty good. Yeah. Starting to gear up with a lot of prospect content here, so trying to catch up a little bit, but no, it's been good.
Yeah, it's that's the summer, right? We're they call it the dog days of summer. There's just not much happening. The NHL is pretty much ground to a halt. There's not much at all. What was our last free agent signing was so long ago.
Yeah.
And prospects is basically all we really are talking about now. So let's jump in and talk about some standouts, and we'll start with the end. We'll gear up to the gold medal game. We'll start with Germany, who ended up being the 7th place team, and when it all kind of ended it here. I'll start with you, Peter. Who'd you see from Germany throughout this tournament?
Going in, there was a lot of talk surrounding Max Kalse. He was a little bit of looking into him early on. There was not a whole lot of talk about where he could go. I know Daily Faceoff early on had him as a 13th ranked forward, and it's clear to see why, because he's been tearing it up in the German U20 league. You look at his past numbers in the at the U20 level: 15, 20, 24, 25, 23 last year before getting a stint in the DEL. So for him to have the kind of showing that he did at the Hlinka Gretzky, obviously, Germany didn't have the best effort or, performance overall, but I thought Kalse did a really good job in terms of solidifying himself as an early candidate to be one of the top German prospects this year, and possibly even a first rounder right now. We'll see how the season goes. Again, you don't want to put too much stock into it right now. But, he had 3 points in 4 games, looked really steady, looked really consistent as well. Big play driver. Really liked what I saw, and hopefully can continue to see more from him because he really had a good impact for Team Germany.
All right, Dayton, what about you for Germany? I said 7th, 8th place team. There are 8 teams, and they were the last one, so 8th. Who'd you see from Germany?
Yeah, I've been aware of Kalse kind of heading into the tournament. He was sort of the top guy for the German team. He did well. 2 goals, 3 points to lead the team. But tying him with goals was Jonas Schwartz, who I thought also looked pretty good. Sort of providing a little bit of that, if you want to call it a secondary scoring punch. He hasn't really been on any draft radars yet. He is on the younger side for the 2027 draft. April birthday, but he's playing in the under 20 in Finland, which is a good sign. Had 9 points, 13 games last year. So he might be one that jumps up a little bit. And on a weaker German team, he tied Kalse with 2 goals in 4 games. So, there's something there.
For sure. Traditionally Germans aren't really high in the draft. We've got, I think it was Moritz Seider was the last really high draft pick for Germany. So it's good to see some
Tim Stützle.
Stützle, that's right. Stützle would have been higher than him. That's right. Stutzel would have been, but yeah, there's not a ton of them that are up in the upper end of the draft. So yeah, it's great to see. We'll see where they end up in 2027. All right, moving to Sweden, who maybe a bit of a disappointing showing at the Hlinka Gretzky. They're usually much higher. They're usually in the middle conversation, but this time ending up 7th, beating Germany 4-2. So Dayton, I'll stay with you. Who'd you see from Sweden?
I mean, there was kind of just one guy, in my opinion, and it was Oliver Sundberg. Oliver Sundberg looked pretty strong whenever I was able to watch him. Finished the tournament with 4 goals and 6 points in 4 games. He has been, I don't know if talked about as a first-round pick, but definitely one of the top ones heading into the 2027 draft from Sweden. And I don't know, beyond that, I think he was sort of their top guy. Milan Sundstrom also looked pretty good. Another 6-point player. But yeah, I definitely agree. It wasn't a great showing from the Swedes, and usually you expect a little bit better from them.
For sure. They've won golds at this tournament before. So this year, not as impressive. Peter, what did you think about the Swedes?
Yeah, I was really surprised with Oliver Sundberg as well. I thought he was the one that really stepped it up as opposed to like Milan Sundstrom, Dorian Eklund, Asp. I would even say Benjamin Nystrom as well. Looked pretty solid as well. Tough going for the Swedes this year. I mean, it's definitely odd to say, knowing how no matter what tournament they're going into, they're automatically presumed as like one of the top few favorites of that tournament. You would have not necessarily thought of that, but you would have like expected a little bit more of a competitive edge from them. Sundstrom looked good at times, but he wasn't, dynamic or game changing for them. Dorian Eklund Asplund, Eklund Asp, I really liked him going in. I wanted to see what he could do, and wasn't that all impressed. It was okay for both players, but I was left wanting more, and I was more impressed with Oliver Sundberg. So the top players for Sweden, or the top draft eligible names, had an okay showing, but other names stepped up and had a really good showing to basically improve their stock for not necessarily maybe a first round bid, but obviously for, the mid parts of like a second, third, whatever have you right now. Again, it's too early to tell, but again, really wanted a little bit more from the Swedes top guys, but still impressed with some of the other guys that were below them in terms of, draft rankings or heading into this draft season.
It's early. I mean, there's so much more to come. This tournament is, I don't know how to say forgotten about once the draft is, but it's a long time before that you kind of not thinking as much when the draft comes around. So they got a lot of time to kind of impress after this. All right, I'll stick with you, Peter, with Czechia. This is they ended up being 6th, getting a defeat, Switzerland beating them. Who'd you see from the Czechs?
Yeah, and after a string of good showings in early tournaments, World Juniors, U18s, again, not the kind of finish that Czechia would hope for, but 2 guys really stood out for me, and that's one of them was Maximilian Marish. Joining Rimouski this year, he looked absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he's 6'6", 225. Just had to double check the height and weight measurements right there. So he's a big guy, and he was using all of that to his advantage. He was dominant in every aspect in the board battles, middle of the ice. He was making his presence felt, and I'm going to be watching him a little bit more closely this season. Moving on from Marish, I thought Lukas Kachler was really a standout presence for Czechia on the back end as well. Coming into the tournament, when I did a players to watch, I said Kachler was one of those guys in the back end to watch out for, and for Czechia to be heavily relied on, or Czechia would rely on him heavily in order to be an offensive producer. And he was just that. And yeah, he's 5'8", 150 pounds. Teams are going to be wary of that. They're going to be putting an asterisk beside that name and being like, hey, what's going to happen with him as the season goes on? But I thought he handled himself very well. I thought he evaded pressure very well, made smart decisions with the puck, was executing passes. Again, small in stature, but the skill and offensive production and upside is there with the puck moving abilities. And we always talk about, players under 6 feet, under 150 pounds, if they're ever going to translate to the next level. We've seen forwards do it. Now it's time for defenders to do it. And I think Kachler can be one of those guys to prove everyone wrong.
I mean, Lane Hudson has already done that. He's proven a lot of, and maybe, inspiration for a lot of these defenders that are smaller. I'm not saying everyone's going to become Lane Hudson or anything like that, because if that was the case, we'd have a league full of 5'8" defensemen. But I mean, there are exceptions, and I mean, you can't count these guys out. And we say it every draft season, and they all seem to come out and prove a lot of these people wrong. So we'll have to keep an eye on him for sure. And I will, because, everyone knows I love the undersized players and them succeeding for sure. All right, Dayton, what about you for Czechia?
Yeah, I mean, those two guys, Marish and Kachler, were I think Czech's best players by maybe a pretty good margin. You'd expect them to finish better than sixth, especially with some of the talent that they were bringing. It's just didn't work out this year. And that's kind of what makes the Hlinka Gretzky so fun, in my opinion, is you don't really know who's going to finish where. So it's a bit more chaotic. A couple of maybe more underrated guys. Dominic Bertus, I think is how you'd say it. He's another undersized defenseman, but showed some really good shutdown tendencies. He managed to play 3 games in the Czech top league last year, and will be playing with the Lethbridge Hurricanes this season. And they could use some strong players coming in. They had a bit of a rough season last season, so Bertus should help them out. And I don't know. I think I kind of like what Adam Nemec was bringing. And we've got another Nemec coming into the NHL potentially. He's headed to the Brantford Bulldogs and finished with 2 goals in 4 games, which is fine. He was the team captain, had a pretty good goal from what I remembered in against the Americans, just found it right in the slot, caught it with his foot. So he's got some pretty good hand-eye coordination. Just, maybe not as high of a total as he would have wanted, but there was definitely some brief showings of a high-end talent there.
Yeah, there was a few guys. I mean, a lot of this, like you said, it's an interesting tournament to watch, and you're not always expecting the ones that win aren't always the expected ones. Although I think this year probably was the team that won probably was expected to. But yeah, I'd say Czechia maybe a bit disappointing where they finished, especially like you said, Peter, with how they've been doing in all these other tournaments. Being maybe not as a surprise anymore of being a medalist, but this time not so much. All right. Well, one team that can maybe surprised was Switzerland. They didn't medal, of course, but 5th place. But one player really stood out. And I know both of you mentioned him at the beginning, and he's going to probably end up being a pretty high draft pick. Peter, who stood out? And this guy's probably be the first one.
Yeah, definitely Jonah Neuenschwander. And we've been talking about him for some time right now as a 15-year-old at the World Juniors, playing against players that are way older than him at that tournament. And every single time, maybe the production wasn't there, but you saw the flashes of the skill, the power game, the shot, everything that makes him so special in the previous tournaments was really on display, and everything's starting to come together right now in his draft year. And when Canada was playing Switzerland at the very beginning, Neuenschwander had a really good snipe on the power play, and he has been a dangerous high volume shooter for Switzerland this whole entire tournament. He was, a constant shooting and scoring threat. He was displaying that physical edge, winning battles, doing everything that he can to get a positive result for his team. And yeah, this is probably a big stepping stone for Switzerland where maybe it may not work out in the future, but you could tell that they're going to relish this as a small victory for them to take another step further. And with Neuenschwander leading the way for this tournament, I think it's going to open a lot of doors and a lot of paths for other players, because his offensive game, competitive drive, energy really showed. And I really think that maybe we're talking about a guy that could be in a top 5 spot when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying the New Jersey Devils are going to they like their Swiss players, although I'm pretty sure Devils fans don't want to see a top 5 where they're not being around the playoffs this coming season. So maybe not. But Dayton, who did you see anyone else from Switzerland? You probably Neuschwander was the big standout there.
Yeah, Neuschwander was definitely one of the guys who was hard to miss whenever he stepped on the ice. He's got the size. He's also got a bit of a mean streak.
Yeah.
Like against Canada, he was always in the box. Was not afraid to mix it up and just get right in there. And maybe it cost Switzerland a little bit. So working on a little bit of, when does he engage? But also these international tournaments aren't a true representation of how it'll be penalized in the NHL and professional leagues like that. So, take it with how much you will. Another guy who I quite liked was Alessandro Domenicelli. So for millennials like myself, that name might be somewhat familiar because his dad played in the NHL. That was Nat.
Yeah.
One of the best names I ever had on a hockey card. HNAT and then Domenicelli. Fantastic hockey name. And now he's got 2 kids coming up. Alessandro led the Swiss with 7 points in 4 games. He was playing with the Portland Winterhawks last season. It's probably safe to assume he'll be back with them. Is he a first-round pick? Tough to say right now. But he did display a lot of stuff that you want to see in a top prospect. He had great creativity. He could really move the puck well. Was sort of an offensive force alongside Neuschwander for the Swiss, helping them do a lot better than I think a lot of people expected. Maybe his skating can, improve a little bit, but that's also something that should improve, especially if you're playing in a league like the WHL. It's a fast league. You're gonna work on that, and Portland's always been a pretty good team, so that's a good place for him to sort of continue to develop his skills here.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland, they seem to have, there's some draft years where all of a sudden they have a really high-end guy. Nico Hischier, of course, we all know him. He was, first overall pick. It's been a while now, but I mean, and Timo Meyer, of course. It's just funny how just the Devils have all these guys, right? But we'll see where Neuschwander ends up in this year's draft. And I'm assuming he'll probably be a top 5 pick if it keeps going like this. So we'll see.
Top 10 at the very least.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Also, don't forget Siegenthaler.
Yes. Siegenthaler is
another
one. Right? They have them all. We'll see. I mean, Switzerland, they can churn out there, and they're a very surprising team a lot of the time, these international tournaments where you don't expect them to be good, but then all of a sudden they're close to being a medal team. So we'll see how they end up moving forward, the under 18s and those tournaments too. All right, Slovakia, and we're into the medals now. I mean, Slovakia didn't end up with a medal; they ended up 4th. But Peter, who'd you see from Slovakia as they very close? They lost 3-2 to Finland, so they were close to getting on the podium there.
Yeah, imagine if they would have had Timothy Kaza at this event as well. I thought that, if they had him just like the way that he produced at the World U18 Championship, I thought that would have been a big boost for them offensively. But they still had a top offensive producer in Thomas Selic. I believe he had 7 points in that U18, and he improved on that with 8 points in 5 games. And he was basically the driving force for Slovakia throughout this whole entire tournament. Really liked the detail orientation to his game. He was very smart. He was always in position. He was always not necessarily cheating offensively, but when the play was about to leave, he knew when to take off. And I think at one point he had a shorthanded goal. I think he had a hat trick against Sweden. Multi-point game against Sweden, and then a 6-point game against the Swiss where he had, power play goal, shorthanded goal, 4 goals in that game as well. I just really liked how intense he was, how driven he was. This is a player right now that's put himself into first round contention right now. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to hold up and stay in that spot, because now we're starting to see another wave of Slovak players moving up right now. I wanted to see a little bit more from Oliver Ojigani, where he went and played over in the USHL. I thought maybe that North American experience would have helped out a little bit. Would like to see a little bit more from him because there was a lot of hype around him as well. But Thomas Selleck, really impressive showing and really strong early candidate to be a first-round pick right now.
Yeah, Dayton, who'd you see from the Slovakia? I mean, like you said, Peter, Slovakia's been actually, well, maybe they had a little bit of a lull there. In the World Juniors where they had been dominant with a bunch of guys, Slavkovsky being first overall pick, and then maybe a couple tournaments where they aren't doing as well. But who'd you see from Slovakia? They seem to maybe coming back.
Yeah, they're always a little bit like, we talk about the big four, the big five, whatever. Slovakia's always been on that fringe. And sometimes they push into it. They're always right there. They've been one of my favorite teams to follow for years, like Zdeno Chara, Marian Hossa, going back to like Ziggy Palffy. They always manage to put out really good talent, especially like NHL caliber talent. So one guy I think definitely deserves some recognition here is Jakub Husar, their goalie. The Hlinka Gretzky is not a great goalie tournament. How many teams have we gone through so far and only mentioned forwards or defensemen?
Yeah.
It's not a team or not a tournament where goalies really stand out because you're just getting a lot of high scoring games generally. Husar did really well though. He finished with a .923 save percentage over 4 games, which finished second in the tournament, I believe. Showing good athleticism. He was able to make really crucial stops and keep, Slovakia in it. He's got some good size, maybe a little undersized for NHL standards, but 6'2". I mean, he'll cover the net well enough. Also has already played some top level pro games in Slovakia. So yeah, I think this could be a contender for maybe a top goalie coming into the draft. It's really hard to predict at this point, but definitely a name to keep an eye on.
And Patrick Rylak as well, too. He had 4 goals in 5 games for Slovakia. So that was another name to really stood out for me in terms of goal scoring, in terms of a player trying to carry the offensive load for Slovakia. He scored some timely goals for them, too. So he was another one that really stood out.
Yeah, with goalies, we always say with their development, it's different. And going into the draft, you're not sure who's going to stand out as goaltenders. And this past draft was an interesting one where we had almost a full round of goaltenders that went by the end of it. And that wasn't really expected. So, to see a goalie maybe stand out early, we'll see how it goes throughout the season. But yeah, definitely a name to watch out for on the goaltender side this year. All right, let's go to the medalists now, and that's Finland getting the bronze medal, winning against Slovakia 3-2. Dayton, who'd you see from the Finns this time around?
So I already talked about a really good name in Alessandro Dominicelli. My favorite so far, and by a pretty good margin, is Paavo Fugelberg. Amazing. I love a good hockey name. I love a good Finn name.
Yeah.
And he's not eligible until next year, which is, we're being robbed of a fantastic name.
One more year, though.
One more year. He has to just compete with Maddox Schultz. So good luck. So 6 points in 5 games, 3 of which were goals. I believe that led the Finns. I'll double check here really, really quick if my internet cooperates.
Yeah, he led the Finns in scoring. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
6 points in 5 games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, just really, really strong showing from one of the team's youngest players. I think already got good size, 6 foot, right, 176, plays right wing. Is already, expected to play Liga this season, which is very impressive. Definitely a top prospect heading into next year. For this year, I don't know how many other goalies we can highlight, so I'll highlight one more. Samuel Heikkinen, I thought he did pretty well. He finished with a .901 save percentage, 280 goals against over 4 games, was one of the more had one of the heavier workloads for the tournament, at least among goalies, and still managed to put up a decent save percentage. So yeah, him and Hussar could end up being the top European goalies coming into the draft. But again, we'll have to see. Just a pretty strong showing from both of them and they, were in the bronze medal game against each other, which I think is fun.
For sure. I like the cool names too. And yeah, 2028 draft, we'll talk about a couple more guys as we go here. But yeah, it's a 2028 draft's looking pretty good as well before we get into 2027 here. Peter, who'd you see from Finland?
Yeah, I mean, Papa Fugelberg was outstanding for the Finns. Again, really going to be a top name for 2028. Again, as Dayton said, going to have to compete with Matic Schultz, Liam Pugh, no big deal. But yeah, impressed with him. I liked Lucas Santala. He's projected to be the top Finn off the board, potential top 15, 16 pick this year's draft. More of a heavy shooter kind of player, but I noticed a little bit more of a playmaking element in this tournament from him, being a little bit more well-rounded and not relying heavily on that shot. Again, he's got great power, velocity, and accuracy as well. So that's going to work to his advantage when he heads over to London. Obviously, the Knights continue to get rich with a lot of their imports and all their draft selections as well. So I'm going to expect a big year from him. He looked fantastic in this tournament. And Ali Kiomala, I think he was the third one, or the third player that formed that top line of Fugelberg and Santala. And he fit in really, really well. And notice Santala developing more of a playmaking element. Kimala's been more of a playmaker throughout his career, has had more assists and goals. Obviously, that's not a big, reason to suggest that he is going to be a playmaker, but he had the same amount of goals as everybody else. So really stood out for me in that regard too. I believe, it's funny because all three of those players had 3 goals, or majority of them had 3 goals, 3 assists. 3 goals, 3 assists. Santala had 2 goals, 4 assists. All had 6 points. So they were definitely the leading, go-getters for Team Finland right there. But we just basically rounded out that top line because they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, big reason why they ended up with the bronze medal for sure. All right, let's move now to the big game. It ended up not being a competitive game by the end of it. But Team USA, we'll start with them. Lost 8-1 to Canada to get the silver medal. Dayton, who'd you see from Team USA, even though they didn't have a great final game?
Well, I will mention, just as a Canadian watching that, about time. I've wanted to watch a game like that for years, and they keep depriving me of it. That's what I wanted to see. Thank goodness. Okay, fandom aside, I thought Joey Cullen looked pretty good.
Yeah.
That is a top prospect, again, coming up for the 2028 draft. But yeah, he managed to be one of the most dynamic players for the Americans before this game. And really showed off that, the 2028 draft is going to be a very competitive, top 10, I think we're talking about right now. And then team leader, Gavin Burkhardt, I thought, pretty solid tournament. 9 points in 5 games, 5 of which were goals. Definitely a solid player coming into the 2027 draft. Was with the Spokane Chiefs last season, will likely return there before heading to Michigan State next year.
Yeah, I mean, the Americans didn't have a great gold medal game, but they did have a pretty good tournament. They did make it to the gold medal game. So, it's just end up Canada just was better than them for sure. Peter, who'd you see from the U.S.?
Yeah, I can't argue with Joey Cullen. I mean, fantastic option for next year's draft. Gavin Burkhardt was literally, again, the driving force for Team USA at times. But I also really like Jake Pruntree as well. Really steady mobile presence on the back end, great playmaking, 5 assists in 5 games, no goals, but really liked the well-roundedness that he brought to the table as well. in a tournament where USA usually doesn't bring their best players and they're never usually on the table at this point, I thought that Burkhart was one of them. Pruntree was definitely a good presence on the back end. Again, hard to take anything away from them because, it's great that they made the gold medal game, but, seeing them in that gold medal game, no one really basically showed up, or it was just too much for them to handle basically against Canada. So, but as a whole, I did like Burkhart's, goal scoring abilities. I like Pruntree's, puck movement abilities as well. So those were two guys that really stood out for me.
All right, let's go to the ones we're all here for. Team Canada, they were impressive throughout the tournament. And of course, the gold medal game, beating the Americans 8-1. The guys that scored in it, pretty much the standouts of the tournament. So, Peter, who'd you see? There's obvious ones. We mentioned the names already, but maybe don't take them all since we'll have Dayton to take some. But although there's a lot more guys, so Peter, who'd you see as very impressive throughout this tournament?
I am going to take two players that are up for the draft this year, but are also formed that amazing third line that absolutely just demolished everyone in front of their way. Jaco Wysick and Caden Strader. I thought that they, especially as the tournament went on, I thought that whole line, along with Benjamin Veitch, formed really great chemistry, and they knew their role to play heavy, get in on the attack, and when they got control of that puck, they let their skill take over. And nothing was more evident than that one shift where they were just wrecking havoc against Team USA. And then I believe Wysick ended up scoring a goal there. I'm going to have to go back and look at it, but I don't know who scored, but I can't remember. But it was definitely that one shift where they all made their presence felt. And I think that this is going to be the case for Wysick this year. Had a really good showing last year in Guelph. 43 points in 60 games. Now you're expecting him to take a big step, and this tournament's really going to help with that because he is physical, he is engaging, he has great skill, great hands, a decent shot, great playmaking awareness. I really think that he's going to be he may be a little bit lower right now, but he's a player that's going to be higher than expected, and I think that's going to be the case. The other one, Caden Strader, I really fell in love with him as the tournament went on too. Again, he's not the biggest player, but he plays a bigger game and he's able to hold his own quite well. So I don't know. I really like those players that had that work ethic, that energy, that could, play a heavy game, but also take control of the skill game as well. And both Wysick and Strader did just that. And those were, again, I could have gone with anybody else on Team Canada because you could have picked anybody, but those two guys really, really impressed me.
Yeah, two guys I'll probably be up to try to write their prospect profiles. I love guys that that strong work ethic and they can play those two styles for sure. So definitely two guys that stood out. Dayton, you're probably going to mention the other guys that basically led the tournament in scoring and aren't up for this draft. So who are you going to talk about?
Yeah, I'll talk about those two. And then one guy who is, maybe two, I don't know. But Canada was great. It was a really, really strong tournament from guys who you expected to have a strong tournament. And that, of course, was Maddox Schultz and Liam Pugh. Not eligible until 2028, of course. But, man, they dominated the tournament, especially when they were playing together. They just showed so much great chemistry and really were able to find, open spaces on the ice. Showed off really great playmaking skills, really great mobility. Maddox Schultz has a lot of strength to his game already. Despite being only 16 years old, he's very strong. Is not afraid to get into the corners there and really fight for a puck, which highlighted his amazing playmaking skills, which I think coming into the tournament, people were more interested in his goal scoring skills, right? That's sort of what he's been advertised as. He had 7 assists in 5 games. To finish off his 10 points. Liam Pugh, on the other hand, great playmaker. He had 6 goals in 5 games. So he was able to, put himself in a great place to score a lot of those really crucial goals. Probably a lot from, Maddox giving him the puck there. Really, really talented players. Really shows that they played together for the last couple of seasons now and will be in Regina. Amazing players. And I wrote a little feature about Schultz. If you want, go check it out. It's just kind of looking at how he is already a top prospect based on what he's done. Really, really good player. Okay. Up for this year, Brock Cripps from the Prince Albert Raiders. I think he looked better than Landon Dupont. He didn't have as many points. And that's not to say Landon Dupont looked bad. I thought there was maybe one or two like weaker defensive reads. Offensively, he's always been fantastic. Like a play driver from the blue line. He thinks the game in a very different way, and it's made him a very impactful player. Speaking of Dupont, Cripps plays more of a quote unquote traditional two-way game. I watched him a couple of times with the Raiders last season. He is going to have an incredible 26-27. I'd put money on it. He had 37 points in 62 games last season, and in the playoffs had 21 in 20. Now with Daxon Rudolph headed off to Denver University, he's going to be the Raiders' kind of top defensive guy. I would expect point per game minimum. Right-handed shot. He's only 5'10", but man, can he move. Very great player. I'm interested to see kind of where he shakes out because he's projected like top half lottery picks, but I could see him climbing up if he proves that he's, his size doesn't get in the way. And I would argue it doesn't. He's been excellent. So definitely one of my favorite quote unquote underrated prospects heading into the 27 draft. But I'm very excited to see where he goes.
There are lots of players we could talk about on Team Canada there, and those are definitely the ones. And Landon Dupont, even though, like you said, he still stood out throughout the tournament.
He did,
of course. He's slated could be first overall pick, most likely the first overall pick going into this draft. I think, and we've already talked about him, the exceptional status and all that stuff, way before he was even eligible. And now he's eligible for this draft, and it seems like it was so long ago, but it comes up quick.
I was about to say, it's a bit of a steady progression for Dupont, more so in this tournament. So, like, even in the first game, he looked good, but there were not necessarily jumpy moments, but maybe the puck wasn't working in his favor. Like the handling wasn't there. It was jumping on his stick a little bit, was trying to do a little bit too much. But he got comfortable as the tournament went on. And I think the game against Team USA was the icing on the cake, where he had 3 primary assists out of his 4 assists in that game. So to me, I thought that was his final, where he capped it off with the biggest moment and having his best efforts. And I think that's going to help him get ready for the season. Because we saw what happened with Gavin McKenna last year. The jump from WHL or CHL to college can be a bit of one. Yeah. We'll see how he fares early on, but if Dupont is able to transition very well, I think he's going to be in a good spot. And I think he's already created a bit of that separation from everyone in North America, because there's still a lot of this is going to be a big class for Russia as well, with Nazar Privalov probably being the next best player behind him. I think maybe that gap is just widened a little bit, but I'm not counting Privalov out just yet.
Oh yeah, like I wouldn't argue at all at this point that Dupont is anything but first overall. Just to clarify kind of my stance
for
here.
Sure. Yeah.
It did bite somebody on Twitter the other day to argue against that, and I am not there. I still think he's first overall. I have watched him play. He is a separator.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of people do get mad on Twitter for no reason.
Oh yeah. It's, believe it or not, still a cesspool of whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So take it with a grain. Dupont is fantastic. He's such a skilled player.
Yeah.
I am interested to see how he transitions into the University of Michigan here. It's like McKenna. He's probably going to show off some of his warts, and we'll see kind of how bad those warts are. Will it push him out and allow some of those Russians to take over? Right now, no, but there's still a long season ahead of us.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to be surrounded by, obviously, with the University of Michigan. He'll be surrounded by a ton of talent. So it's going to be lots to work with. So, yeah, we'll have to watch. Of course, we'll be watching him throughout the season and everything that happens for the 2027 draft, which will be here quicker than we know it, as it always is. But we are still in August, and over, it is less than a year away, though. You're looking at it. But yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dayton, for coming on as always, talking to Hlinka Gretzky. And as we prepare for the season to come, which is going to be exciting to watch all these prospects in action once the regular season begins, which again will be here before we know it. So make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com. Like Dayton mentioned, he had a piece on Maddox Schultz out and not that long ago. You can take a look at that. Of course, that's for the 2028 draft, but that's coming up again. We'll be here before you know it too. But yeah, check out all that. And until our next episode, we will see you next time.